The sun had long disappeared behind the jagged towers of the city, leaving the streets bathed in gray twilight. Shadows stretched along the cracked cobblestones, curling like silent serpents, and the distant hum of the city's engines echoed through the alleys. In the center of the Grand Plaza, a crowd had gathered, hushed and tense, watching an event that would mark the end of a small, fragile life. Leora stood in the middle of the platform, her tiny figure trembling beneath the weight of countless eyes. She was small, barely the height of a human child, with luminescent skin that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Her wide, violet eyes darted nervously between the towering humans surrounding her. She had been brought here as a criminal, accused of a crime she did not commit, a crime that threatened the fragile balance between her people and the humans. The magistrate's voice rang out, cold and commanding. "Leora of the Ilari, you have been found guilty of crimes against the human council. The sentence is death by the council's decree." She looked down at her delicate hands, glowing faintly with a strange warmth that only she could feel. She had never meant to harm anyone. Her people's magic, subtle and ancient, had been misunderstood. A flicker of light had escaped her hands while she was in the city's archives, a harmless spark that illuminated the forbidden scrolls she had been studying. But humans, fearful and quick to judge, had called it dangerous. That spark had become a crime in their eyes. Among the human crowd stood Elias. He was tall, with sharp features softened by a hint of weariness. His dark eyes scanned the platform, not with curiosity or anger, but with something far deeper, concern. He had watched Leora from the shadows over the past weeks, studying her as she moved through the city under guard. He had seen her kindness, her careful attentions to others, and the quiet sadness in her gaze. And now, as the magistrate spoke her sentence, something stirred in him, a fierce, almost reckless need to act. Something inside told him she was innocent. Something inside told him he could not let this small, fragile life be taken away. The guards tightened their hold on her. Their hands were large and unyielding, and she could feel the cold metal of their shackles against her wrists. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breath. She had always been brave in her quiet, careful way, but this fear was different. It was raw, bone-deep, threatening to consume her entirely. And yet, even in her fear, she caught sight of him, Elias. Their eyes met for a moment, and in that moment she felt something she had never felt before. Not hope, not quite, but a flicker of warmth, like a small flame struggling against the wind. The magistrate raised his hand. "This sentence is final. Let it be known that the council shows no mercy to those who break our laws. Any who interfere will face the same fate." She could feel the weight of the crowd pressing down on her, the invisible chains of judgment closing in. Her small body felt fragile, like a leaf about to be crushed underfoot. Elias stepped forward. The crowd parted slightly as he moved, his gaze locked on the girl. Every step he took was deliberate, measured, and yet it carried an unspoken defiance. The guards noticed him immediately, their hands moving to intercept him, but he did not stop. "You cannot do this," he said, his voice steady, carrying across the plaza. "She is innocent." "Do you question the council's authority?" Not when this small girl's life was in his hands. Leora stared at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. No human had ever spoken to her like that, not with respect, not with such quiet strength. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but the words caught in her chest. The magistrate slammed his staff against the platform. "Enough. Guards, remove him." "I understand justice," he said, "and this is not justice." Suddenly, the smallest spark of magic leapt from her hands. It was faint, barely more than a shimmer, but enough to make the air around her glow softly. The guards recoiled, their eyes widening in fear and confusion. The crowd gasped again, some stepping back in alarm. Elias did not flinch. Instead, he smiled, just slightly, as if to tell her that it was okay. "Use it if you must," he whispered. Leora's pulse raced. She had never dared to show her power in front of humans, not like this. But now, as the executioner's sword gleamed in the torchlight, she felt a surge of courage. She lifted her hands slightly, and the shimmer of her magic expanded, surrounding her and Elias in a soft, protective glow. The magistrate's face twisted in anger. "Stop her." "That is forbidden." The city's towering walls loomed above them, but the tunnels and alleys beneath the streets offered a secret path, one that only a few remembered. As they ran, Leora's small hand clutched his tightly. Her heart pounded not only with fear, but with a strange, new emotion, something like trust, like hope, like a bond forming in the midst of chaos. Elias felt it too, a quiet warmth that had nothing to do with the law and everything to do with the life he had chosen to protect. They stumbled into a narrow alley, hidden by the ruins of an old market. Elias pressed himself against the wall, panting, and Leora followed, her small form shivering. For a moment, all they could hear was the distant noise of the city and the echo of their own breathing. You saved me," Leora whispered, her voice trembling. Elias shook his head. "No," he said softly. "You saved yourself, I just made sure you had the chance. Why would a human risk so much for me?" And in that moment, the bond between them was sealed, not just of survival, but of something deeper, something neither of them fully understood yet. But even as they caught their breath, danger lingered. The magistrate's soldiers would not give up easily. The city was alive with watchers, and whispers of a small alien girl escaping justice would spread like wildfire. Elias knew that the road ahead would be perilous, and that saving her was only the first step in a journey that could change both their worlds forever. And then, from the shadows at the end of the alley, a figure emerged, a dark silhouette, cloaked in the colors of the night. The figure paused, its gaze fixed on them, and in a voice that was neither fully human nor fully alien, it whispered a single word. And in that moment, the city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would happen next. The alley was dark, the walls close and damp. Leora's small hand clutched Elias tightly, her body trembling, not only from fear but from the strange surge of magic that had bubbled from her during their escape. The faint glow from her skin illuminated the narrow passage, casting eerie shapes on the stone walls. Elias glanced over his shoulder. The figure from the shadows was gone, or at least hidden, but he knew they could not afford to linger. Every second they stayed in the city's streets was a second closer to capture. He tightened his grip on Leora's hand and led her forward, silent as a shadow, moving through alleys few dared enter. "This way," he whispered, turning into a small passage between ruined buildings. "There's a tunnel under the city. It's old, forgotten. It will take us far from the plaza, at least for a time." Her heart pounded as they ran. She had never imagined humans could show such bravery for someone like her, someone who had always been feared. Every time she looked at Elias, she saw determination etched in his face, a steady fire that made her feel safer even in the darkest corners. Are you sure we'll be safe there?" she asked, her voice a whisper almost swallowed by the shadows. Elias shook his head slightly. "No place is completely safe," he said, "but it's better than being out in the open. If we move carefully, we can stay ahead of the guards." It smelled of damp earth and forgotten history. As they stepped inside, Leora noticed the soft hum that always accompanied her magic. It had been quiet until now, a subtle warmth in her hands, but here it seemed stronger, responding to her fear and Elias' presence. She tried to control it, to keep it hidden, but the glow from her skin pulsed faintly along the walls. "You're different," Elias said softly as they moved deeper into the tunnel. "There's something about you I can't explain, something powerful but gentle. You're not dangerous in the way they fear." Together, Leora froze, her glowing skin pulsing brighter in response to her fear. Elias raised a hand to silence her. "Stay close," he whispered. "It could be a patrol or worse." Leora's pulse slowly calmed, but she could not stop the tiny tremor of fear in her body. You were amazing," she whispered once the danger passed. "Back there in the plaza, you risked everything for me. Not human, not alien, anyone." Leora's magic continued to pulse faintly, sometimes flaring when she was scared or anxious, and Elias began to understand its rhythms. He could feel it subtly guiding them, a gentle hum that seemed to know the way forward. "You're stronger than you realize," Elias said one night as they rested in a small hollow beneath the tunnel. "Not just in magic, in courage. In heart." Yet in that confined space, a bond began to form. She had always been careful, cautious, mistrusting of humans. Now she found herself leaning into his warmth, trusting him with her fears, with her small life. The next day, they emerged from the tunnels into the ruins at the edge of the city. The sun had just begun to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. The sight of the world outside the city walls, forests of strange, glowing plants and rivers that shimmered with colors she had never seen, filled Leora with awe. "This way," Elias said, pointing toward a forest path that led away from the city. "If we can reach the highlands, we'll find safety for a while. There are places humans rarely go, places where your kind can move freely." "And keep moving." Strange creatures watched from the shadows, eyes reflecting in the early morning light. Leora stayed close to Elias, her hands occasionally brushing against his as they navigated the uneven paths. Each touch sent a small thrill through her, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. Hours passed, and the sun rose higher, casting warm light across the forest. Leora paused at a small stream, kneeling to drink. Elias watched her, his expression softening. "You're doing well," he said quietly. "Better than I could have hoped. I'm just lucky enough to see it." The wind blew cold and sharp, carrying the scent of distant forests and rivers. Elias set Leora down gently, and they both looked out over the expanse, silent for a long moment. This is beautiful," Leora whispered, her violet eyes wide with wonder. "I never knew the world could be like this." "There's more out there than fear and laws," he said. "There's hope, too, and we'll find it." Her magic pulsed faintly, sensing something that her eyes could not see. Elias noticed her hesitation and tightened his grip on her hand. "What is it?" he asked. Leora shook her head. I don't know. Something is coming." The night air was alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant calls of creatures, and the soft hum of Leora's magic, now stronger, almost guiding them forward. Hours later, they came upon an ancient ruin hidden in the forest, half covered in vines and moss. Elias paused, studying it. "This could be a place to rest," he said. "It's old. Few humans come here. It may be safe for a while." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Leora's small hand twitched in response, her magic sensing it, warning her. And in that moment, both of them knew the flight was far from over. The city would not rest, and the dangers they faced were only beginning. A sudden noise, a soft rustling like footsteps on leaves, came from the entrance of the ruin. Leora froze. Elias held her hand tightly. "Who's there?" he called softly, stepping forward, ready for whatever awaited them. The rustling stopped. Then from the shadows a single voice spoke, soft yet filled with power. "Leora." Leora looked at Elias, eyes wide with fear and wonder. "We were not alone," she whispered. Elias nodded, his jaw set. "Then we face it together." Shadows moved like living things, and the soft glow from Leora's skin lit their path. Elias led her carefully along the narrow trail, aware that danger could come from any direction. Each step forward brought them farther from the city, but also closer to something neither of them fully understood. "This forest, it's different," Leora said softly, her voice tinged with awe and fear. "I feel something here, something alive. It's like it wants me to find it." She did not know what awaited them, but a small voice inside her whispered that they were getting close to something important. Suddenly, the trail opened into a hidden clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone archway, half covered with moss and vines. Its carvings glimmered faintly with runes Leora did not recognize, glowing softly in her light. This is it," Leora whispered. Her small hands hovered over the archway, feeling a vibration that ran through the earth itself. "This is where I feel it, the magic. It's strong here." She took a deep breath, feeling the hum of her magic growing stronger. As she touched the stone, the carvings flared with light, reacting to her presence. It was like the archway recognized her. A sudden voice echoed from the clearing, deep and resonant, though no one could be seen. "Leora, child of the stars, you have come at last." Who's there?" "The curse that binds the Alari, the curse that marks you for death. It is old, older than any human law. It was meant to control magic that should never have been controlled. And now, child, it chooses you." She saw her ancestors, small and glowing like herself, moving through a world of wonder and light. And then she saw darkness creeping in, chains of magic, twisting around their limbs, and humans taking control of their powers. The vision ended with her parents, holding her as a baby, whispering words she could barely remember. "The curse has followed your bloodline," the keeper said. "It seeks to destroy you unless its hold is broken, and only through choice, through courage, and through trust can it be undone." Elias stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out," he said firmly. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You will be tested both in body and heart. Your magic will grow, but it will demand a price. And the humans, they will not stop hunting you. Many will see you only as a threat." Leora felt it reach into her, touching her magic, stirring it. She gasped as waves of energy pulsed through her tiny body, a mix of warmth and power she had never known before. It's too much," she cried softly. "I can't control it." "I'll help you." She could create gentle lights that floated like fireflies and sparks that danced along the stones without harming anything. Elias stayed by her side the entire time, offering guidance, encouragement, and calm when fear threatened to overwhelm her. As night fell fully over the forest, Leora collapsed beside Elias, exhausted but exhilarated. I think I can do this," she whispered. "I think I can break the curse." The city's soldiers would not give up, and the magic they had awakened would draw attention, not only from humans, but from forces older and darker than either of them could imagine. The next morning, as dawn painted the sky in muted gold and violet, they set out again. Their goal was to reach a sanctuary spoken of in whispers among Leora's people, a hidden place where magic flowed freely and where the curse might finally be broken. The path was treacherous. Thorny underbrush tore at their clothes and skin, and strange creatures watched from the shadows, curious and cautious. Leora's magic became both a guide and a warning, flaring when danger approached and lighting their path when darkness threatened to overwhelm them. Along the way, Leora shared fragments of her life, memories of her parents, of a home she barely remembered, and of the peaceful village where she had grown up before humans came. Elias listened quietly, never judging, always present. And with each story, a bond grew stronger between them, more than just survival. It became trust, care, and something tender, unspoken, hovering in the space between them. At midday, they paused at a crystal-clear river. Leora knelt to drink, letting the cool water wash over her hands, her small fingers trembling as she touched the surface. Elias watched her silently, noting the delicate curve of her shoulders, the glow of her skin in the sunlight, and the quiet bravery she carried despite everything. "You're remarkable," he said softly. "No one else could survive this and remain so strong." "Then we keep giving each other courage," he said, "no matter what comes next." A figure emerged from the trees, tall and cloaked in shifting shadows. The air around it shimmered with power. Its voice was calm, yet carried an unearthly resonance. "Child of the stars," the figure said, "you cannot hide from destiny. The curse follows you, and those who would break it will face what lies beyond fear." She looked at Elias, her violet eyes wide with alarm. We have to run," she whispered. Elias nodded, gripping her hand tightly. "Yes," he said, "but we face it together." The journey had only just begun, and the curse was waiting. The forest darkened as the sun sank behind distant hills, casting long shadows that twisted between the trees. Leora and Elias moved cautiously, their eyes scanning every rustle of leaves, every flicker of movement in the darkness. The air was thick with tension, as if the forest itself held its breath. Leora's small hand clutched Elias tightly. Her magic pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a soft, shimmering light that reflected her unease. She could feel the curse growing stronger, tugging at her from within, a quiet, insistent pressure she could neither ignore nor fully control. "We have to keep moving," Elias whispered, his eyes scanning the path ahead. "The sanctuary isn't far, but the closer we get, the more dangerous it becomes. The humans and whatever else is hunting you, they won't stop. We face it together. I won't let them take you, not now, not ever." "They're here," he whispered. His hand tightened around hers. From the shadows, figures emerged. Humans, soldiers, armed and resolute, their faces set with grim determination. Behind them, faintly glowing eyes watched from the darkness creatures of the forest, drawn to the pulse of Leora's magic. "Leora of the Ilari," the lead soldier called, his voice echoing through the trees. "You are coming with us. No one defies the council. If you want to take her, you'll have to go through me." The creatures watching from the shadows hissed and skittered away, frightened by the display of power. Elias grabbed Leora's hand. "We can't fight them all. We have to run." Yet with each burst of power, she felt the curse tug harder at her, draining her strength. "Keep going," Elias urged, his voice steady despite the danger. "We're almost there, just a little farther." But the soldiers were relentless, their shouts growing louder, their pursuit unyielding. As they neared a small clearing, the sanctuary came into view, an ancient stone structure, half hidden by vines and moss, glowing faintly with runes etched long ago. Leora's heart leapt. This was the place she had been searching for, the one whispered of in her people's legends. But just as relief began to settle, the soldiers closed in. Elias' eyes narrowed. "We need a plan. You stay here," he said, gesturing toward the sanctuary. "I'll slow them down. I'll handle the rest." Leora's magic flared, stronger than ever, illuminating the clearing in waves of light. Elias moved with her, guiding her focus, helping her control the bursts of energy that rippled outward. Each surge pushed the soldiers back, creating a protective barrier around them. But the effort took its toll. Leora's small body trembled, her skin glowing brighter and brighter as the curse tugged at her from within. She gasped, struggling to maintain control. "Leora, focus!" Elias shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You can do this." Slowly, the light stabilized, forming a radiant shield around them that repelled the soldiers. The creatures in the forest watched in awe, their eyes reflecting the brilliance of her power. For a moment, it seemed as if they could hold their ground forever. But then, the leader of the soldiers raised a strange device, a weapon infused with magic that countered hers. A sharp pulse shot toward them and Leora staggered, her shield flickering. Elias grabbed her, holding her steady. "You're stronger than this. You've come too far to stop now." Drawing on that, she let herself push past the pain, past the fear. A surge of pure light exploded from her, brighter than anything before, enveloping the clearing in a warm, protective glow. The soldiers cried out, falling back, their weapons useless against the force of her magic. Elias held her close, feeling the pulse of her power resonate with his own resolve. "You did it," he whispered. "You're amazing." The sanctuary loomed ahead, glowing faintly, offering promise and hope. But even in that moment, the danger was not over. The pulse of the curse still tugged at Leora, a quiet reminder that her journey was far from complete. And in the distance, the faint shimmer of other eyes, watching, waiting, hinted that forces older and darker than the human soldiers were now aware of her power. Elias took her hand gently. "We'll face whatever comes next," he said firmly, "together." The journey had taken them far from the city, through fear, magic, and courage. But the hardest trials were yet to come. The curse was patient. It waited, and it demanded a price that would test not only Leora's strength, but the depth of the bond she shared with Elias. As they crossed the threshold of the sanctuary, the glow of ancient runes enveloped them, welcoming them into a place of safety and secrets. Leora felt her heart lift, the weight of the curse slightly lessened by the power of the sanctuary, and by the human who had chosen to stand by her side. But just as relief began to settle, a voice echoed through the stone halls, soft and resonant, filled with warning. "Together." Leora's small hands glowed faintly, her magic resonating with the runes embedded in the stones. Elias walked beside her, steady and vigilant, his eyes scanning the shadows for danger. "This place," Leora whispered, awe in her voice. It feels like it's alive. Magic this old, it doesn't forgive mistakes." She had come so far, from the plaza where humans had condemned her, through the forest filled with dangers, guided by Elias, and now into the heart of a place that could save her or consume her. They entered a circular chamber at the sanctuary's center. The ceiling was high, carved with symbols that glimmered like stars. In the middle of the room was a shallow pool, its surface glowing with soft light. Leora could feel it calling to her. "This is it," she whispered, "the heart of the sanctuary." She knelt beside the pool, her reflection shimmering in the water. The magic within her surged, responding to the ancient energies of the sanctuary. The curse, dark and heavy, pushed against her from the inside, threatening to consume her. "You must face it," a voice echoed, resonant and calm, as if coming from the stones themselves. "Only by confronting the curse with courage and love can it be broken." And she realized something profound. The curse was not just a test of power, but a test of heart. Elias knelt beside her. "Look at me," he said softly. "You are stronger than the fear, stronger than the darkness. Trust yourself and trust us." She closed her eyes, focusing not on the pain, but on the warmth of Elias' presence, the strength of the sanctuary, and the courage she had found within herself. I am not afraid," she whispered. A surge of light erupted from her hands, filling the chamber with radiant energy. The pool's surface rippled and glowed, reflecting the intensity of her magic. The curse screamed in resistance, twisting, writhing like a dark serpent, but Leora held firm, letting her magic flow freely. Elias placed his hand over hers. "Together," he said. "We do this together." The shadows of the curse writhed, struggling, then began to unravel, dissolving into the glowing runes of the sanctuary. Leora's body trembled with effort, but she did not let go. She would not let the darkness win. And then, with a final surge, the curse shattered. Light exploded from Leora, filling the chamber so completely that every shadow vanished. She collapsed beside the pool, breathing heavily, exhausted but victorious. The pressure inside her was gone. The weight she had carried for generations, the dark chain that had marked her people, had been lifted. Elias held her gently. "You did it," he said softly. "You really did it. I couldn't have done it without you." Birds began to sing, leaves rustled in a gentle breeze, and the air was filled with a sense of renewal. But the sanctuary was not just a place of safety. It was also a place of truth. The keeper's voice echoed softly once more. The choice you made, the courage you showed, and the bond you share, these are the foundations of a new path. One where humans and the Alari can coexist, not as enemies, but as allies. That trust and love can change everything. Leora felt her magic resonate with it, and she realized that her powers were no longer a burden. They were a gift, one that she could use to protect, to heal, and to inspire. Elias walked beside her, protective yet gentle. "Where to now?" he asked, his voice steady, full of quiet strength. "Home," Leora said, her small hand resting in his. "But a new kind of home. One where we can build something better, for humans, for my people, for us." The journey back would be watched, and humans and Alari alike would have to learn to trust again. Yet Leora felt ready. With Elias by her side, she could face whatever came next. As they walked through the forest, their hands intertwined, Leora sensed something stirring in the distance. A ripple of magic, faint but unmistakable, brushed against her mind. It was not threatening, yet. But it hinted that her journey and the story of her people was far from over. Elias noticed her pause. "What is it?" he asked. Leora smiled softly, her violet eyes shining with determination. "It's a new beginning, and we'll face it together." For Leora, for Elias, and for the bond they had forged, the curse was gone. The past had been confronted, the darkness overcome, and the path ahead was filled with promise. As they continued walking, the forest seemed to hum in quiet approval. Creatures peeked from the underbrush, curious but unafraid. The rivers sparkled, the trees swayed, and the world felt alive with possibility. And in that moment, Leora realized that the greatest power was not magic, nor the breaking of curses, but the courage to trust, the strength to care, and the love that had guided them through every shadowed step. Elias glanced at her, a soft smile on his lips. "No matter what comes, we face it together." "Together," she repeated, the word carrying a weight of promise, of hope, and of a future they would shape side by side.